Hello, Howard Baxton here. In this video, we're going to talk about Inpo's Prim Params editor plugin. This guy's pretty cool plugin. With that, we can change all kinds of features on prims, whether it be uh, a link prim, a specific face, whether it be the main prim, whether it be props. Okay, so I'm going to try and make this a short video just so that I can, well, later on we're going to do another video and show you how to work through it and deal with this, all that neat stuff. But here I want to introduce you to what's available. When I'm done with this video, I'll have a link to it here in the top, and we can distribute this note card. Requirements are NPost 4.0 and above. Okay, so it won't work with older versions of NPost, just 4.0 and above. Usage, the plugin contains two scripts, the NPost Prim Parameters Editor plugin, main, and we can call this the main script, and the storage, and we can call that the storage script. The main script has to be placed into a link set where you want to manipulate. So if you want to manipulate the main object, it would go into the main, or the root, typically the root where all the other MTOS scripts are located. This can be the main object and or props, or if you want to manipulate both, then place it into both of them. The storage script. The storage script is optional. If you don't want to work with props, you don't really need it. If you work with props, you may want to res a prop with the same appearance that was selected previously. To achieve this, place the storage script into the main object, along with all the other NPost scripts. What it will do is it will, when you select a color or texture or whatever you're doing, the storage script will remember that. And then if you res an object, it will automatically send those updates out to the prop. So say if you had a chair and you colored it red, then when you resed a coffee table next to it, the coffee table would also receive the same commands that it has stored as the last, whatever you want to call it, the last appearance. There it is. That's what I was looking for. I hope all that makes sense. So if you got the storage script really is only going to work with props. It's not going to work with the main, because you can change the main directly because it's always resed right there. Okay, so basically the storage remembers the last appearance that was selected and applies it to the props as well. Sends it out to the props so they can match. Okay, one more item we need to talk about here. Prim description. To address a prim inside a link set, we need the description field of the prim to give it an identifier. Okay. When we give that identifier, well, we'll give that prim an identifier, NPost is going to go out and locate all the prims that are using that identifier and apply the settings to that. And there's kind of a caution here, I guess you'd say. Please don't use numbers as identifiers. That's kind of weird. If you want to give a prim more than one identifier, then separate them with the separate the identifiers with the tilde, which is that wavy line. So in other words, you can address that prim with one identifier for one set of parameters, and you can also access that prim um, basically with another identifier so that you can actually, maybe you could even group them together if you wanted to. And we can show you an example of that later so that it makes more sense. And it says you can also use the same identifier on more than one prim. So if you wanted to, in my previous example I used, if you resed a coffee table and an ottoman or something, both can be accept those same parameters. So both would change, not just one. Okay, and the command syntax, here we use a reserved word, I guess. It's prim edit, all in caps, one word. Okay, and that will be the keyword for the prim editor, and all commands in this line will be sent to the prim editor. Okay, so next we have a command, which is what do we want to do? I mean, what function do we want to address? And when we have to use that identifier to locate the prims we want to change via the prim description. And then we have the parameters. And as you'll notice, it's set up so that we have some optionals if you wanted to use, say, like color and texture, for instance. You could just put them all in the same line and just continue on. You don't have to use the prim edit keyword, just the command, the identifier, and the parameters. So here's an example. We have the prim edit. We want to use prim color. That's the command. The main object is the identifier. And then we have the parameters required to do this function of prim color. So what are these parameters? Down here you will see that I have a link to the LL linked or set linked primitive parameters fast. And that's a function that the script calls. And ideally what it's got, it has all the parameters we need. Let me pull that up because I got it open here in another window. So where is our color? There's our color. So what's it do? It sets the face's color. And the parameters for that are listed here. So we need, the first one is an integer face. Then we need a vector for colors. And then we need a float for the alpha. Okay. And that goes for any of these things. You want prim size, you go over here and you look at it, and all you've got is a vector size. So that would be XYZ size. Okay, so now how can we address these? Let's start with prim color. We have three of these to go. We need the face, we need the color, and we need the alpha setting. If we were to go in here, and this one here is kind of incomplete, it looks like. Where was that, the example? We actually need another one, which is the alpha, and we can set the alpha to 0 or 1 or whatever it is. So how do we use this? Let's go ahead and edit this couch and go to the texture. Prim color is where you would set here. Okay, and it's a 255, 255, 255, but that's not the number we need for that script. We need the LSL value, which is, what do you want to call it? It's a fraction or percentage or whatever. But if you were to copy this, the LSL color string has been copied to your clipboard. Now you can use it let me open this up and paste it in there so we can see it. Okay, 255 is a value of 1 for red, a value of 1 for um, green, and a value 1 for blue. It's RGB. So these are RGB numbers, 255 for red, 255 for green, and 255 for blue. But the LSL values run from 0 to 1. So 1, 1, 1 is white. If that makes sense, that's how it is. So you use those numbers rather than your RGB numbers. Okay, now if you wanted the alpha number, it's going to be right here, but for some reason I think that's reversed. Here it shows 0, but in our data here, we actually, I think, need to set that to 1. You can play with that, or I can play with that, and we can see what's going on there. But I think it's reversed from that transparency. Okay, and there you've got the command. This one here is going to set it to red. So the red value is 1, the blue value is 0, and the green value is, or the green value is 0. They're both 0. The green and the blue are 0. Excuse me, I had them backwards. Okay, so that would produce a color of red for color. This one actually has no color, so it's set to 111. 111. These are float values so that you can use fractions. So that's why there's the 0.0 shown and the 0.0 and the 0.0. Okay, I hope that's cool. Let's take a look at one more here. How about Prim texture? So if we say copy this line, actually let's just continue on. Let's just add a tilde, and we wanted to set the texture to, we could go Control V, that's not, oops, sorry, I messed that up. I wanted Prim texture, so let's copy this. Let me close this out and start over. So I don't mess up my note card here. Let's Control C this to copy. And put up here a tilde. And then Control V. Text gen. I'd swear I copied this. Prim texture. Okay. Then we do tilde. And we would do our identifier again, which we have in our description. Let's go ahead and use that same one. Tilde. And now let's go back over here to this guy and go down here and look for Prim texture. And that's right here. And it sets the Prim's texture attributes. And to use this, again, we need all of these guys. We need the face, we need the string texture, which you can use the UUID of a texture, or you can use the name. But if you use the name, then it has to be included, that texture needs to be included in the contents of the Prim. And then we have a vector for repeats, and a vector for offsets, and a float for rotation in radians. So let's look at how we get those numbers. Let me move this back out of the way. And let's go over here to our texture. And what do we need? We needed a face, right? So just for simplicity, let's just use the -1 again, which is all sides. And then a tilde. And what did we need next? We needed the texture. Um, let's set a texture. Well, that's interesting. It's not showing up. Inventory, local, bake. I thought sure that texture would show up right here. Oh, I can tell you why. Um, this Impose tester bot, that #1 that I'm using, doesn't have that in its texture. So it doesn't show up in its texture, but we could get that texture right there if Impose texture bot owned it. It would show up right here. Okay, and we could get that texture and put it in here. So let's put some junk in there to say we did it. Okay, we did something. We got our texture in there. And then a tilde, what's next? We need a vector for repeats. What are the repeats? A vector is displayed just like this guy, where we've got the less than sign and 3 values separated by commas inside the vector, and then the greater than sign. So that's how a vector is written. In this case with repeats, we only have 2 values, so this first value and this second value will be used and the third will be ignored. That's a trick that SL used, scripting thing. At any rate, the horizontal scale is actually the same as the horizontal repeats. And this guy is set to a 1, so here we would put our vector and put 1.0 comma, and on our vertical scale it's also 1, so we'd put a 1.0 comma, and our third value doesn't care, so we'll just put a 0.0 and then put our greater than sign. There we go. So the third number is ignored. And the next thing we need is our offsets. Our offsets are down here, these last 2 numbers. And we've got offsets of 0 and 0 in this case, so we'd put up another vector. And it's the same as the repeats or scale, where we're only using the first 2 values and the third one's ignored. So we could actually even just copy this. Well, we can't either. We got to put a 0, 0. Not a comma, 0.0, comma, 0.0, comma, 0.0, and then put up that. Okay, so the next value we need is rotations. However, that needs to be in radians. If we go down here, I actually put up a converter, because up here you see this rotation says rotation in degrees, and we need it in radians. So we need to convert this number to radians, and you can find a link to a converter right there, which looks like this. And 1 radian is 0.0174533 radians. So if we put a 0 in here, it converts to a 0 radians. So we're cool there. So at any rate, that's a nice little converter for you and easy to use. So we could put a 0 here and we're done. So now we've put up Prim color and we've put up Prim texture. And Pose is going to read that as Prim edit, send all of this whole line to the Params editor main script, and it's going to go to work and set main object, all faces to this color, and this transparency, which they call an alpha on the website, but we call it transparency here in the Firestorm edit window. We're also doing the Prim texture, which is also going to be applied to the same Prim and also the same faces. So it would really actually look like this. Okay. With all that done, Prim texture, we're going to all faces, and that's where our UUID, and this is our repeats or scale. This is our offsets for horizontal and vertical, and this is our rotation in radians. Fair enough, all done. Okay, hope that works out. And next we'll go through and set it up and show you how to do this. I'll give you a quick little demonstration of what we've done here. We've got the couch that looks like this. It is set to red. We can set it to white. We can set it to brown. And and there's some other ones in here too, I believe. There's a rough, different textures, a golden, so you can set it up with several different options. If we look in here in contents, we've got our brown, we've got our golden, we've got our red, we've got our rough, and somewhere down here we've got our white. And this all works out. Let's take a look at the red. Here we've got just the other way around. We've set the Prim texture first, and then we set the Prim color next. And we've got our identifier, we've got our faces, we've got our UUID, which is all of this for the texture. And then we've got our, what do you want to call them? The horizontal scale or offsets, not offset, scale or repeats. Then we've got our offsets, and then we've got our rotation. And our Prim color's got our identifier, which is the same as the main. All faces, we set it to white, and that's our alpha, 1.0. Down here, we've got another line, which is virtually the same thing, except for it's got a different texture because it's a different Prim, basically. I think this was a chair. Yeah, it's a chair. So it won't have the same bake texture as our main. This is all set up, and we do have to do a prop do with our prop name, our prop number, and this one here's got to be blank. And then we just do the same thing all over again. This will send it out to props, specifically this one named chair. Okay, thank you. We'll see you in the next video. Hope that helps.